He was born on a small Mediterranean island. He became a general before the age of 30, crowned himself emperor, defeated powerful European armies, and changed the laws of nations. Then, in just a few years, his enormous empire collapsed, and he was sent to a remote island thousands of miles from home. But here is the question: how could one man rise so quickly, defeat so many enemies, and still lose everything? Today, we will ask 50 questions about Napoleon Bonaparte. Every answer will be the same, but by the final question, you may see him very differently. Who was born in Ajaccio on August 15, 1769? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was born in Corsica shortly after the island became part of France. His Corsican origins remained an important part of his identity, even after he became the symbol of French power. Which Corsican-born boy would later rule much of Europe? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. His rise began far from the traditional centers of European power. He was not born into a major ruling dynasty, but he grew up in a family with modest aristocratic status. Who left Corsica as a child to receive military education in mainland France? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. At about 10 years old, he was sent to the military school at Brienne. There he studied history, mathematics, geography, and military discipline. Which student was especially interested in history and mathematics? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. These subjects later influenced his battlefield planning. He learned to think in terms of distance, timing, terrain, and the movement of large groups of people. Which young officer trained as an artillery specialist? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Artillery became one of the foundations of his military style. He understood how concentrated firepower could break an enemy position at the right moment. Which officer benefited from the opportunities created by the French Revolution? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The revolution disrupted the old aristocratic system and opened faster paths to promotion. Talent, ambition, and political loyalty could now matter more than birth alone. Who became famous after helping capture Toulon in 1793? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. At Toulon, the young officer's artillery plan helped French forces defeat their enemies. The victory brought him recognition at a crucial moment in his career. Which general became known for acting decisively in Paris in 1795? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. His role in suppressing an uprising made him a controversial but highly visible figure. Supporters saw him as a defender of order. Critics saw the violence as a warning. Who married Josephine de Beauharnais in 1796? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Josephine became a central figure in Napoleon's private life and public image. Their relationship was surrounded by affection, ambition, political connections, and later tragedy. Which young general was sent to command the army of Italy in 1796? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. He inherited an army that was poorly supplied and exhausted. Instead of presenting weakness, he promised his soldiers victory, honor, and the wealth of Italy. The unknown young officer was about to become Europe's most talked-about general. Which general turned the Italian campaign into a spectacular series of victories? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. In Italy, Napoleon moved quickly, separated opposing armies, and attacked before they could coordinate. His victories transformed him from a promising officer into a national hero. Who became associated with the dramatic crossing at the Bridge of Arcola? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The Battle of Arcola became one of the defining images of his early career. Later paintings and stories made the moment even more heroic than the battlefield reality. Which commander won the Battle of Rivoli in 1797? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Rivoli strengthened French control in Italy and demonstrated Napoleon's ability to use speed, terrain, and concentrated forces against a larger enemy. Who turned military victories into diplomatic power through the Treaty of Campo Formio? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. He did not simply win battles, he used them to reshape negotiations and borders. His influence was now extending beyond the battlefield. Which commander sailed to Egypt with soldiers, ships, scientists, and scholars? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The 1798 Egyptian expedition was designed to challenge British influence and create a new route toward the east. It was also a scientific expedition, with scholars studying Egypt's history and monuments. Who commanded the French army at the Battle of the Pyramids? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The French victory near the pyramids gave Napoleon a powerful image of himself as a conqueror, surrounded by ancient history. His speeches connected the present army with Egypt's distant past. Which leader suffered a major naval setback at the Battle of the Nile? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The British victory under Admiral Horatio Nelson damaged the French fleet and left Napoleon's army isolated in Egypt. It showed that his success on land did not guarantee control of the sea. Who returned from Egypt to a politically weakened France in 1799? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. France was struggling with instability, war, and public dissatisfaction. Napoleon understood that his military reputation could now become a political weapon. Who seized power in the coup known as 18 Brumaire? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. In November 1799, the coup ended the Directory and created the consulate. Napoleon became first consul, officially sharing power, but rapidly becoming its dominant figure. Which general promised to restore order after years of revolution and war? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. His appeal was not based only on glory. Many people also wanted stable institutions, functioning government, economic recovery, and an end to political uncertainty. Napoleon had won fame through war. Now he had to prove that he could rule. Who became first consul of France? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The title sounded republican, but real authority increasingly centered on Napoleon. He combined popular approval, administrative control, and military prestige. Which leader supported the creation of the Bank of France? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. During the consulate, Napoleon worked to strengthen France's finances and central institutions. His government aimed to replace revolutionary instability with administrative order. Who was associated with the civil code that influenced legal systems around the world? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The civil code organized important areas of private law, including property and contracts. Its influence lasted far beyond the lifetime of the man whose name became attached to it. Which ruler reorganized education under stronger state control? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon viewed education as a way to train capable officials and loyal citizens. Schools became part of the wider project of building a centralized modern state. Who created the Légion d'honneur to reward military and civil service? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The award system helped Napoleon recognize talent and build loyalty. It also connected personal achievement with service to the state. Which leader used newspapers, paintings, ceremonies, and bulletins to shape public opinion? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon understood that victory had to be communicated. He carefully presented himself as a heroic commander, an efficient ruler, and the personification of France's national greatness. Who became Emperor of the French on December 2nd, 1804? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The coronation marked his transformation from revolutionary general to imperial ruler. It also revealed one of the great contradictions of his career: an empire emerging from the aftermath of a revolution against monarchy. Which emperor is famous for placing the crown on his own head? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Whether remembered as fact, symbol, or carefully constructed political theater, the scene communicated independence. Napoleon wanted to appear as the source of his own legitimacy. Who tried to build a dynasty by placing relatives on European thrones? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Family members were placed in important positions across Europe. The strategy created influence, but it also created resentment and depended on relatives who did not always share Napoleon's ability or judgment. Which emperor divorced Josephine because he needed an heir? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The decision was deeply personal but also political. Napoleon wanted a legitimate dynasty, and in 1810 he married Marie-Louise of Austria. Which emperor won the Battle of Austerlitz in 1805? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Austerlitz is often remembered as one of Napoleon's most brilliant victories. He used deception, timing, and concentrated force against the combined armies of Austria and Russia. Who defeated Prussia at Jena and Auerstedt in 1806? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. These victories demonstrated the speed and organization of Napoleon's army. They also confirmed that the old European military powers could be defeated by a new style of warfare. Which commander defeated Russia's army at Friedland in 1807? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The victory helped bring Russia to the negotiating table. For a moment, Napoleon's influence stretched across much of continental Europe. Who attempted to weaken Britain through the continental system? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The policy tried to block British trade with Europe. Instead, it created economic pressure, encouraged smuggling, and made some of Napoleon's allies increasingly unhappy. Which leader placed his brother Joseph on the Spanish throne? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The intervention in Spain triggered fierce resistance. Napoleon could defeat armies, but controlling a population that rejected his authority proved much more difficult. Which emperor became trapped in the long and costly Peninsular War? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Spanish resistance, British forces, and guerrilla warfare drained French soldiers and resources. The conflict became one of the great burdens of the empire. Who entered Russia with a vast multinational army in 1812? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The invasion was one of the largest military operations of its time, but the army's size also created enormous problems of food, transport, distance, and supply. Which commander faced Russia's scorched earth strategy? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Russian forces often retreated while destroying or removing supplies. The farther the French army advanced, the harder it became to feed and maintain itself. Who entered Moscow, but failed to obtain the peace he expected? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Reaching Moscow did not end the war. The city could not provide the political victory Napoleon needed, and the approaching winter made the French position increasingly dangerous. Which emperor led the disastrous retreat from Russia? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Cold, hunger, disease, exhaustion, distance, and repeated attacks destroyed the army's strength. The Russian campaign revealed the danger of pushing an empire beyond its logistical limits. Which leader faced a new European coalition after the Russian disaster? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. His enemies now understood that he could be defeated. Prussia, Russia, Austria, Britain, and other powers found new reasons to unite against him. Who lost the Battle of Leipzig in 1813? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Leipzig was a major turning point. Napoleon still possessed military skill, but the coalition had growing numbers, resources, and determinations. Which emperor abdicated in April 1814? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. The invasion of France and the collapse of political support forced Napoleon to give up the throne. His first empire had come to an end. Who was exiled to the island of Elba? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Elba was small compared with the empire he had ruled, yet Napoleon continued to watch events in France and waited for a chance to return. Which former emperor escaped from Elba and returned to France? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. In 1815, Napoleon's return created the period known as the 100 Days. His soldiers and supporters gathered around him, forcing Europe to respond once again. Who was defeated at Waterloo on June 18, 1815? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Waterloo ended his attempt to rebuild the empire. The outcome was shaped by battlefield decisions, weather, timing, and the arrival of Allied forces under Wellington and Blücher. Which leader was sent to the remote island of St. Helena after Waterloo? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. St. Helena was far from Europe and much harder to escape than Elba. It was chosen to prevent Napoleon from becoming the center of another political comeback. Who spent his final years at Longwood House in exile? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. During his final years, Napoleon dictated memories and reflected on his career. His conversations helped shape the image of the defeated emperor as a tragic historical figure. Which ruler is remembered as both a reformer and an authoritarian? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. He modernized institutions, law, administration, and education, but he also concentrated power, restricted the press, and pursued wars that caused enormous suffering. His legacy cannot be reduced to a single label. Who still inspires books, films, arguments, and historical debate more than 2 centuries later? Answer: Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was a soldier, statesman, reformer, emperor, propagandist, and a deeply ambitious human being. He changed Europe, but he also revealed the danger of believing that military success has no limits. The answer to all 50 questions was Napoleon Bonaparte. But one name can contain many different stories. The story of a young officer, a brilliant commander, a powerful ruler, a reformer, an invader, a defeated emperor, and a legend created partly by his own words. Was Napoleon one of history's greatest leaders, or was he a man who could not recognize the limits of his own ambition? Write your answer in the comments.